What noise do you hope the audience makes after watching your show?
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No, God, please, no! No!
The Halo TV show was bad. Monumentally bad. Which is a shame considering how long we've been waiting for a Halo adaptation. Hell, we've been waiting for this show for almost 10 years.
I'm thrilled to announce a live-action Halo television series.
For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm the guy that remembers Red vs. Blue Zero exists.
So you don't have to.
And now I'm going to explain plot point by plot point exactly why this show is so bad. And considering how great Paramount and CBS have been in the past to content creators criticizing their show, I expect this to feel like
skip away into the woods and get fucked by bears.
Before we jump into the show, I want to take this opportunity to go over my thoughts on adaptation and how it will factor into this review. For those of you who just want to get to the show, skip here. When it comes to discussing adaptation, I'm a firm believer that it should not factor into the overall quality. Whether something is well adapted should be split and sectioned off into a separate discussion. How close something is to its source material is not really a useful metric for judging the writing quality of something. The most well-known example of what I'm talking about is The Shining. The movie version is vastly different from its source material. Character personalities, certain character deaths, things that go unexplained that have explanations in the book, and the overall nature of the supernatural elements. Stephen King has famously gone on record many times saying how much he hates this movie as an adaptation of his work. However, you'd be hard-pressed to find most people calling this movie bad just because it's not being faithful to its source. And what makes The Shining the perfect example of what I'm trying to get across is that there is a second adaptation of it that follows the source material closely. It even had Stephen King's involvement and stamp of approval. So it must be the superior version, right? Well, due to the fact that most of you probably haven't seen it, or are only aware of it because you've heard other people criticize it, should answer my question. It is notoriously bad.
Hey Doc, it's dangerous. You want to stay away from there.
And should go to show that just because something is more faithful to its source doesn't make it inherently good or bad. It's all down to the execution. The purpose of bringing this up is to preemptively address anyone who says,
"You only hate this because it's different from the games."
Far from it. I actually went into the show not really caring. I saw the fact that this was a separate timeline from the games as somewhat of a positive.
The Silver timeline's a little bit different. There are events that maybe we pulled closer together. There's events that you may have read about in the books or you've seen the stories, and we may see them from a different perspective. Really, the goal of it was, how do we tell a story that is very much in the Halo universe, the Halo universe, and includes the sights and the sounds of the games and events from the games and also from the books, but also have the freedom to let that story grow the way that it needs to.
We've seen how well 343 have been handling the main timeline the past 10 years.
I was wrong. I thought that I could do this on my own. But I forgot that the whole point of all of this, the entire reason that I chose you in the first place, was that we were supposed to be a team.
Ah, yes. That perfectly explains why you murdered trillions with your army of robot owls with Death Star lasers. This absolutely fixes the character assassination in Halo 5 and definitely doesn't stick the knife in deeper. Yep, perfectly wrapped up and explained. Now with that being said, I'm not saying I won't be making comparisons to the games, because obviously I will. Much in the same way when you criticize anything else, you compare it to something that's good. However, it should be noted that when I make these comparisons, I'm doing it to show where they got the idea from and why the execution in the games worked and the execution in the show doesn't. I believe it's crucial for a writer of an adaptation to be very familiar with the source material they're drawing from, especially if you're adapting something that's good, where the logical progression of the plot, world, and characters makes sense. This is so when you do make changes, you understand what will or will not work in your new version, what things you can fix / open the door to, and what things you've now closed off from happening. If you don't have this understanding, you might end up having some elements from the source in your story without the proper context of why they make sense. I'll circle back to this idea much later toward the end of the show. We start the show on a random desert planet with a bunch of teenagers with weird haircuts looking to get high.
The galaxy's highest concentration of heavy hydrogen. Power your ships and power your drugs.
Not exactly how I'd expect the Halo show to start, but let's see where it goes. There are a bunch of what I can assume are militia soldiers joking with each other and trading stories, while watching this guy from The Dark Knight Rises talk about wanting peace with the UNSC. For those who are unfamiliar with Halo, the UNSC are basically Earth's military, not to be confused with ONI, which, at least in the games, are like the CIA. So far not bad. It's your standard world building through conversation. This planet's relationship with the UNSC.
This peace talks will fail and the UNSC will come at us with everything they've got.
The difference between a standard Marine and a Spartan.
One Spartan is worth 100 Marines.
Spartans aren't human. They're faster, stronger, smarter.
Which isn't bad, just a little too expositional for it to feel like a natural conversation.
Either Madrigal is free, or it's not.
I guess if you put it like that, but why is being under UNSC control bad? I would assume the UNSC treats the other human-controlled planets much in the same way the US federal government treats the state governments, but obviously on an intergalactic level. Or is that not the case? Is the UNSC doing something really bad that you'd want to secede from them? Look, maybe I'm being too nitpicky too soon. I'm sure something like this, which is crucial to the motivation of one of our protagonists and the entire militia force they fight for, will be thoroughly explored as the show goes on. Speaking of that protagonist, we meet Kwan, who is definitely not in front of a green screen in this shot. She's the daughter of this general guy and has ambitions to...
Getting off this stupid rock.
While they're out there, Kwan finds a Covenant Phantom hovering over a cave. She freaks out and tells her friends, who all think she's joking, for some reason, until one of them gets fucking blasted by a... Holy shit, that's actually pretty cool. Because of how video games work, we never really get to see the effects of being shot by plasma, a detail that can shine in a different medium. And it's nice to see, unlike the newer games, the show is utilizing the mature rating of its source material, which is great for me because this argument can't be levied at me.
This is a film about space wizards intended for children.
So Kwan and the rest of her friends run as they're being chased by elites, until Kwan is the only survivor. She fires a flare, warning everyone else at this fuel pump place to lock everything down and prepare for an attack. With modern day AKs? Isn't this supposed to be set 500 years in the future? Kwan is somehow able to not break her legs and make it back to the base before everything is locked down by running this entire distance. Eventually, the elites arrive and fuck shit up. I agree. The CGI on these elites ain't looking too good, but they sure seem pretty powerful, able to take head-on vehicle collision and turret fire. Man, he's doing better than the Hulk. This is all fine, just so long as this show is consistent about the damage they take moving forward.
A few moments later.
Are we gonna die? No, of course not.
All joking aside, this scene is pretty effective, establishing the Covenant as a major threat for humanity, showing us how easily they can cut through normal human militaries like hot butter. Seeing the brutality of the Covenant through regular humans is something we've never experienced in a Halo game before. Good job, show.
What's true? I thought it was UNSC propaganda.
Oh, spoke too soon. That has got to be one of the stupidest lines ever. Why would you think it's UNSC propaganda? What would they even be propagandizing? Their own planets being glassed? Does he believe they would make that up? Wouldn't there have been footage of a Covenant invasion by now? Why would these people genuinely believe the UNSC would make this up?
Because they're stupid.
The UNSC suddenly appear to save the day, and...
Oh my God!
It's you.
It's John 117 himself. Okay, so let's take a moment here and get in the headspace of this general guy. So we know he has been in a bit of a civil war with the UNSC. I get that. I understand. He even has history with this Spartan, which we learn about later. But these weird aliens that up until now you thought were just
UNSC propaganda
have just shown up and torn right through your forces. Thanks to your daughter, by the way. And you have witnessed one of them gun down all the children in your base, which to his knowledge includes his daughter. So, with all that, he decides to turn his back to the alien and fires at John, instead of getting the fuck out of the way. Also, the elite doesn't take the 2 seconds to shoot him in the back, then turn his fire to John. In fact, he kinda had to go out of his way to avoid hitting the general guy.
You fucking idiot!
Now, this isn't really a writing criticism, but I really don't like the way they use the reticle from the games in John's helmet display. Because the games have your weapon pointed in a permanent position, this makes sense. However, when you are able to freely move the weapon around, it makes less sense. I know they threw that and other surface level shit in here to get fans to cream their pants.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it's the first time that we hear kind of that vehicle shields down sound, and I just felt this adrenaline rush.
So if you're watching the show and that sound comes on, you go, oh, okay, his shields are coming to life, that's cool. But if you're a Halo person, you know that feeling. It means you're back into the game, back into the fight.
Looks great, sounds great, fantastic.
So remember when I was talking about being consistent with the elite's ability to take damage? This guy just killed a bunch of them with a fucking pole. So AK bullets can't pierce their armor or shields, but the blunt end of a pole can? Even with the Spartans' increased strength, this is bullshit. So in regard to this uncolored prop, if I'm being super charitable, maybe it's meant to be covered in sand and that's why it looks like that? But in the previous shot, we see it's fully colored and not covered with sand. So I don't know.
I always thought of it as we want feature film level production value.
For as cool as this action sequence is, there's a lot of wonky shots like this that take me out of it.
Hold your position.
Don't know why the assault rifle had to be CGI, but what do I know? Also, remember where this gun landed. It'll pay off in episode 7, if I ever get there. So after the dust settles, the general guy sees that his daughter isn't actually dead. But, oh no!
No!
There's still one elite left that the Spartans somehow missed. Let's try to get in the headspace of this general guy again. You see this elite slowly limping towards your daughter. So, you take out your gun and shoot at it. Alright, we're doing good so far. Now, the weapon is designed to be fired at a distance. So, let's run up close to the alien so it can grab and kill us. You know what, I take it back. Maybe these people are stupid enough to believe the Covenant were UNSC propaganda. We then launch into the opening title sequence for the show, which has triumphant music playing as John's Spartan armor forms around him. Ironic, given not only what happens throughout the season, but the themes the story is trying to tell.
Feels more like a John story than a Master Chief story, if that makes
no,
sense.
it does make sense. And I think we get both as you get more into the season, right? Because there's who and what does Master Chief represent, and what does that mean to the man inside the armor.
Kwan decides to follow the Spartans, which I guess makes sense because what the fuck else is she gonna do? We see Silver Team, which is these guys, making their way to the cave the Covenant Phantom is above. Man, you guys walked all the way from there to here? I know you guys are enhanced and everything, but you'd think they'd want to get on that Pelican so they can get here faster.
Chief? Covenant Phantom.
No shit.
Kwan is also able to get here quickly too, and it seems in all that time she still hasn't wiped her friend's blood off her face. So John and this other Spartan find an artifact that the Covenant seem to have also found.
Cave network does not appear to be a natural formation.
This cave is not a natural formation.
I know what that is!
And for some reason not taken despite having clearly dug it out fully. I guess slaughtering this random group of humans was more important than first getting this on the ship. I just like the idea they were done digging this out and about to grab it when someone came running in shouting,
Stop asking questions, old man!
man, they must really hate humans if they prioritize killing them before fully retrieving what they consider is a sacred artifact of their religion. John touches the artifact and everything starts to glow. The Reclaimer symbol from the games appears, and then John suddenly gets flashes to his childhood. The other Spartan lady pulls John away, because we were getting dangerously close to learning too much information about John's backstory in the first episode. They then see an elite hiding and chase it out of the cave, bumping into Kwan. The elite gets away in a Banshee, Saturday morning cartoon villain style.
Get you.
bad guy.
John tells the other Spartans to head back to Reach, while he takes the artifact in Kwan and flies back on his own Condor, which I guess is like a pelican, but bigger.
Gamers know the Condor.
Ah, that's why I didn't recognize it. It was from Halo Wars 2. Haven't played it. Though from what I hear, it seems to be the best of the 343 era. So maybe I'll try it one of these days. Anyway, he's told,
That's not procedure.
Just do it!
Then they leave. Not even gonna try to track down where the Banshee went, or at all concerned that the Covenant might come back to glass this planet? Guess not. We are then taken to Reach, where we see Dr. Halsey watching the helmet footage of John touching the artifact. This lady, who is Admiral Perendowski, enters.
We've been fighting these alien creatures for years and we still have no idea what they want.
Which makes that propaganda line even more awkward, considering that if the UNSC have been fighting the Covenant for years, there definitely should be some official record of them. Perendowski tells Halsey that if she can find a way to use the artifact John found to help them against the Covenant, her funding will not get cut. She also tells Halsey that Miranda Keyes will talk to Kwan. For those not in the know, Miranda is the daughter of Halsey and Jacob Keyes, who we have yet to meet. After Perendowski agrees to send the artifact to Halsey, she leaves. It is then revealed that Halsey has a weird clone of herself in this pod thing, a project Perendowski didn't seem on board with. We then go to High Charity, which is a Forerunner artifact that the Covenant operate out of. Apparently there is a human that works for them called the Blessed One. Her name is Makee, which is a huge break from the mainline games that the Covenant even tolerate her, let alone make her a key figure. To be fair, the show does reveal that they never truly cared about her and basically just used her for her ability to activate the Forerunner artifacts. But the fact that the Covenant would even work with a human doesn't make sense. From what we learn in the games, the Covenant see humanity as literal demons. They are hell-bent on exterminating every human colony they find, but maybe the show's Covenant is a little different in their beliefs? They'll definitely dive deeper in the Covenant's beliefs later in the season, right? Especially because we have a main character that apparently shares these similar beliefs. They wouldn't leave that unexplained in their 9-hour season, would they?
I think we both know the answer to that.
Also, it's a bit weird how they reveal one of the prophets here. The prophets in Halo are basically the Emperor from Star Wars. They're the leaders behind the main enemy faction. You'd think the show would want to build up their reveal, so it means something to finally get a peek behind the enemy's curtain. Oh well. On the Pelican, or Condor, or Super Condor, Kwan wakes up and is immediately met with a hologram call from Miranda Keyes, trying to reason with Kwan that despite their differences, they need to come together and fight the Covenant.
If we don't all join together, I don't know how we're going to stop them.
This kind of logic is basically what happens in the main universe. The fighting between the UNSC and the outer colonies stops, and humanity as a whole comes together to fend off the Covenant, because they are basically an existential threat to the entirety of humanity. Miranda explains that all she needs Kwan to do is record herself recounting what she saw. The Covenant attacked, killing everyone except her because the Spartans came in and were able to neutralize them. Seems simple and non-controversial. So how does Kwan, our protagonist, respond?
My dad spent his life trying to free us from you.
What?
What if I say the UNSC sent a bunch of Spartans to attack us? Killed over 100 innocent people, children. And then you kidnapped me to force me to say it was all the aliens.
You what?
We've seen your Spartan propaganda broadcasts.
Lady, that's what you guys thought about the Covenant. If I were you, I'd reevaluate everything I think is
propaganda. And when they hear my version, you can forget about unity or whatever. Those other colonies are gonna run from the UNSC as fast as they can.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Our protagonist, everybody. She would rather lie, keeping the outer colonies in the dark and defenseless against an alien army that can obliterate them without breaking a sweat, than help the UNSC. Even though this wouldn't even hurt the UNSC because, as we can clearly see, they have a whole program of super soldiers that can easily take them on, unlike the outer colonies. In fact, she is willing to go out of her way to lie and manipulate the truth to sell her own narrative to get what she wants. You can almost say it's like her own form of
propaganda.
Focusing foremost on, what my job as a writer is just tell a good story with characters that you can relate to.
We then meet up with Jacob and Miranda Keyes. Miranda brings up that she shouldn't have been the one to talk to Kwan, which is correct. In this continuity, it seems Miranda is a scientist that studies the Covenant. There should be so many other people in line to negotiate with a rebel fighter than an alien scientist. She blames Halsey, even though it was Parandowski's call to do so. Doesn't matter because we need that expositional dialogue establishing that Halsey is her mother and Jacob is her father. And they have a closer bond with each other than Halsey because she pushes them away for her work.
Halsey's always been single-minded. Work is the only thing that matters. I made my peace with that a long time ago.
Not inherently a bad thing, just wish the conversation could come about from something that makes sense. That's all. Miranda then asks what's going to happen to Kwan, to which Jacob, wink wink nudge nudge, says that Kwan sustained injuries from the Covenant that couldn't be treated and died on the trip back.
Came from up top.
Okay, one of two things probably happened when writing this. One, the showrunner wanted to know how shady the humans were in Halo.
First thing I did was went to Seattle for boot camp to kind of get a crash course, not really so much on the game itself, but more on the sort of ethos behind the game, the themes, the important core values.
Instead of just playing the games for your own first-hand knowledge of them, because, the job you have now is writing several hours of a season in that world. During that part of the boot camp, the showrunner probably fell asleep when they were talking about how Oni is the one doing the shady shit, not the UNSC. Though considering how much 343 themselves have fucked up the main Halo games, maybe going to them as the ultimate arbiters of the Halo lore wasn't going to work out to begin with. Or two, they didn't care about how it would affect the world building and just wrote this anyway, and not realizing that having the entirety of the army we are supposed to be rooting for be shady kills our investment in them. Your options for who to root for in this show are the militia group that was too stupid to survive and too unreasonable to see the greater threat to humanity, an alien army dedicated to the extinction of an entire species, or the group willing to kill a teenager who is being too stubborn. Take your fucking pick. Jacob tries explaining the rationale behind this decision, but Miranda isn't too enthusiastic in
Nuanced discussion of the virtues of child
Murdering.
Jacob tries to argue that
we're in a war, Miranda. The future of humanity.
What?
Now, you may be asking yourself, how does killing Kwan factor into
the future of humanity?
That's a good question. Upon not finding it in the actual show, it comes down to the writers jamming a square story into their round theme. What do I mean by this?
Point in saving humanity if we're gonna give up our own.
In order to save humanity, how much of your own humanity are you willing to risk in the process?
Now, I'm sure some of you are saying,
but isn't it important to have a theme for your story?
Yes. Yes, it is. But not when you have to break and smash your story to get it to fit. When first brainstorming for this show, the writers probably thought the idea of exploring humanity and what some are willing to give up of theirs to save others was a great starting point to build their plot from. And hey, it's not a bad idea to explore in the Halo universe. I mean, there are some bigger elements that the series is known for, but I can at least see where the inspiration for that idea came from. But they go about it in the least interesting way possible. We'll go through the other examples as they come up in the show, but this scene is a good one. The writers think they're saying, the UNSC are doing something inhuman to save humanity.
Ironic.
Except, it makes no sense. Why does the UNSC believe not killing Kwan jeopardizes humanity? I thought the only reason they took Kwan is to get her to share her experiences of seeing the Covenant up close to the other colonies. Why not wait until she's on Reach and maybe give her like a day or so to settle down? She did just witness an alien army wipe out pretty much everyone she knew and cared about. She might not be in the best state of mind to negotiate with. If she still refuses, drop her off on a nearby planet or something. Even if she goes kicking and screaming, it's not like she'll be able to do much against John, or any other Spartan. You'll see this a lot, especially with Halsey going forward. The show thinks it's posing interesting questions, but ends up answering them in the most simplistic way possible. We meet back up with John and Kwan talking. John tries to make a joke when Kwan asks what he likes to eat.
Nuts, bolts, microchips.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I wouldn't quit your day job there, John. Especially because it turns out you make a way more effective killer.
When you killed my mother?
Oof, talk about awkward.
Sometimes others know things I do not.
It ever occurred to you that it might work the other way around?
Then you question everything.
And someone told you that's bad?
You heard right. In this reality, John is just a military lapdog who doesn't think for himself. Boy, do I have some thoughts. Right as Kwan starts lecturing him about blindly following shady orders, John gets shady orders to kill Kwan.
Ironic.
John refuses the orders and disables all cameras in the ship to not draw any attention to his actions, which immediately draws the attention of the UNSC.
Ironic, isn't it?
Parendowski seems displeased that John hasn't carried out his absurdly evil orders yet.
What? No. What? No. What? No. What? No.
So they drop the oxygen level in the ship to kill Kwan and the oxygen levels in John's suit to just knock him out. I guess they have control of John's oxygen but not any sort of armor lock function? John looks to be down, but he is able to manually increase the air. Parendowski orders everyone to be on high alert, fearing that because John isn't killing this random teenage girl from the outer colony, he might try to kill everyone in the UNSC. That's one way to interpret his actions, I guess. We see everyone gear up ready for anything, including the other members of Silver Team. Wait, how did they get here before John? Wouldn't they have left around the same time? Why did it take John longer? Halsey tells them to protect John. So you want them to engage the entire army that's gathering in the hangar. How the fuck do you think that'll work? Spartans may be very powerful, but they're not invincible. Back on the ship, Kwan points a battle rifle at John like it weighs all of 2 pounds. And hey, she finally cleaned the blood of her friend from the beginning. She seems scared, irrational, and doesn't know if she can trust John, who is covered in body armor. So naturally, he takes off his helmet.
If you want me dead, you'll need to aim up here.
God, I wish it would be over that quickly. That's right. The big epic reveal of his face, and it was done like this.
When Halo, Master Chief took off his helmet, I did not expect to see the face, you know?
It was hard because there was such a recognition of how impactful that was going to be for the audience. Mm-hmm. Some people have waited 20 years for it. Some people feel, really, really strongly it should never happen.
Now, I'm not really upset about showing his face ever since they revealed this was going to be a separate timeline.
The story made it really clear that it was going to be critical to see him out of the helmet and out of the armor.
In the games, it makes sense not to show it. 343, we are supposed to be the Master Chief.
Chief has always been kept as a symbol, a very vague character that you don't really get to know because you're meant to be him. You put yourself in that position and fill out all the details of the personality with your own.
But at the very least, it should have been done in a way that makes sense within the story. Hell, it could have been revealed as simply as him changing in the locker room. But doing it when someone is pointing a rifle at his head is like the one time his helmet should not be coming off. And don't worry, him taking his helmet off at inappropriate times will only become more common. John explains the situation to Kwan, which convinces her to lower the weapon. She asks why he's doing this.
I don't know.
Oh good, our lead protagonist doesn't even know his motivations. John and Kwan quickly try to disable the autopilot that is flying them to the base. And for some reason, John thinks Kwan has the powers of Ray to be able to pull out random parts of the ship that help them.
I bypassed the compressor.
Bitch, are you for real?
But too little too late because Keyes orders the Mac gun to
knock it down.
They get surrounded and are about to be taken when John just gets a feeling to touch the artifact again, which then causes a giant EMP blast that disables everything in and near the base, including medical facilities that have people on life support or some machine keeping them alive. But let's not think about that. Conveniently, it doesn't EMP their ship. In fact, it powers it up, and they're able to escape. Just like that. We barely get to meet the Master Chief in this timeline and he's already gone AWOL. What does this even mean for his character at this point? I don't know. It's funny how they stressed that they wanted to make this show for new people unfamiliar to Halo.
People that are not aware of the gaming franchise can enjoy as well.
The fundamental benchmark is, are we telling a story that anyone would enjoy, even the non-Halo person?
I think we appeal to both fans and new fans.
I want people in my life who don't understand this thing I love called Halo to understand it, right?
We do not compromise the integrity of the original franchise.
But in order for this payoff to work, you would have to already be aware of Chief's loyalty to the UNSC from the games. Otherwise, this doesn't hold much weight. Next episode opens with a flashback to younger John sneaking out to meet his friend Soren going AWOL. Soren is confused John doesn't have his armor or ditch bag. Apparently he changed his mind about ditching and orders Soren to surrender. Soren tries to convince John that what he's doing is only programming.
What she's taking from you, John, I'm not even sure you realize when it's gone.
Interesting that the one Spartan to break his programming has the Spartan number 66.
Ironic.
John ends up letting him go, but only gives him 5 minutes to escape.
Make it 10.
5. With only 5 minutes to GTFO, Soren just casually saunters away like he's walking his dog around the neighborhood. We then jump back to the present with John and Kwan going through slip space, which is basically Lightspeed from Star Wars. Kwan asks John why he didn't kill her or let her be killed.
Would you let a kid be executed?
No, because it's wrong.
John responds like he's never had an independent thought before.
That's what I was thinking.
Even though we were just shown a flashback that showed John not only have thoughts of escape, that went as far as actually setting up plans with another Spartan to do so, but also let that Spartan go, directly against protocol. Back on Reach, we meet the show's version of Lord Hood, and I don't know what to really say about him. He's like the only one in the show who's the closest to their video game counterpart. That might only be because he's barely in the show though. What's weird is that they could have easily cast Ron Perlman as the character too. He doesn't look too far off of the character and seems like the right age. It's not like Ron Perlman is a busy guy, seeing how often he melts down on Twitter.
Isolate that signal. Master Chief, you mind telling me?
In the United States of America, don't say. Don't fucking say, you fucking Nazi pig. Say, First Amendment. Read about it. Then run for office, you piece of shit.
Oh wait, is that the guy from 2001 A Space Odyssey?
Kira Delia from 2001 A Space Odyssey is in the show.
That's actually pretty cool. John and Kwan exit slipspace right into an asteroid field, and now for some reason they think they've earned John and Kwan becoming a buddy cop duo.
How'd you make it start the ship?
Don't know.
Everything dies. John lands the Condor in a weird asteroid city thing. Is this the sound effect of the door opening on High Charity? I get using recognizable sounds to sucker in those fans, but why use that sound effect here and not, you know, on High Charity? John and Kwan enter, and no one seems happy to see them. John just walks right through them because what the fuck are they gonna do about it? So to stop John from walking forward, they have a forklift drop a bunch of heavy boxes in his path that he could easily walk around. You certainly got him. But instead of just doing that, John pushes the forklift back. A missed opportunity for a little in-character joke would be to have John walk up to the stack of boxes like he's about to pick them up, but instead just takes a step to the side and continues walking. But nah, can't have that. God forbid John shows a little personality. Soren comes in and tells everyone to stand down. Then John, in the middle of a crowd of people with projectile weapons, takes his helmet off. Soren then takes John and Kwan through the asteroid city while explaining that the new leader of Madrigal, the Dark Knight Rises guy, has put a bounty out on Kwan. And with this knowledge, they continue to casually stroll through the asteroid city. Out in the open for anyone with a sniper, hell, any kind of gun, could just easily pick her off. Especially because this place is
home to every misfit, reprobate, outlaw, and renegade in the galaxy.
You know, the kind of people who would probably collect on bounties. In fact, the more Soren talks about this place, the more I get the sense this probably isn't a good place for Kwan to hide.
No law, no police, no government, no responsibility. It's everything we always talked about, man. Absolute freedom.
I mean, if you say so. I guess it's all hunky-dory because Soren pats this guy on the shoulder. See? But if you thought this place couldn't get any dumber...
But I'm not done yet!
The public transportation is basically a death trap. Well, a little more of one than most cities. Why the fuck wouldn't you have 2 different vehicles for this? There's no way people don't constantly make a mistake and mess up the timing. Soren introduces John to his family, his son Kessler, and his wife, Cruella DeVille. The heart wants what the heart wants, I guess. John takes his armor plating off as easily as a t-shirt, even though in the previous episode it's established, like in the games, that Spartan armor needs a complex rig to be put on and taken off. Man, this show is both metaphorically and literally deconstructing John, and slowly peeling away the layers of his exterior until we can only see the cheeks, I mean humanity, underneath. Back on High Charity, the elite that saw John touch the artifact in the previous episode describes what he saw to the prophets and Makee. Have I mentioned how much I don't like the elite's armor in this show? It looks more brute-like than elite, but maybe it's just me. Makee insists she go out and infiltrate the UNSC to retrieve the artifact. It's funny how much power she thinks she has, especially knowing that the prophets are just using her for her abilities to activate Forerunner objects. They have to be thinking to themselves here,
What an asshole!
All I'll say is that in this timeline, the prophets and the Covenant are going really out of their way to get a human to do what they want. Whereas in the games, all they did was just capture a human and force them to touch the Forerunner object against their will. Speaking of leaders making stupid decisions, the high-up leaders of the UNSC have a meeting discussing the guy from The Dark Knight Rises ruling
Was somewhat more of an iron fist than we anticipated when we put him in charge.
which means the UNSC are at least somewhat aware of the horrible things we will see later that he's doing. This other guy argues that he is a reliable business partner, whatever the hell that means. Like I brought up earlier, shouldn't the UNSC operate like a galactic United States, where there is a federal government that enforces federal laws across its states, or planets in this case, with smaller matters and laws being settled at a state or planet level? I'm pretty sure something as big as randomly slaughtering people in the streets would probably not fly. Or maybe I've totally misunderstood what the exact structure of the UNSC government is because of how unclear it is in this show, which is also bad, because that's poor world building that affects our understanding of how an entire subplot of the show is even able to happen. They then bring up the search for John and what will happen to him once they find him. Keyes suggests they should punish him for going AWOL and not killing a teenage girl for the
future of humanity.
Lord Hood doesn't think this is wise because John is not only a useful soldier in the war, but a well-known UNSC icon. Many soldiers and civilians seem to look up to him for some reason. This idea is brought over from the games, but it doesn't make any sense here. The reason Master Chief was so idolized, bringing hope and excitement whenever Marines saw him, was not only because of what he did, but because he was the last of the Spartans. At least until that was later retconned. Which means him joining the battlefield is a big game changer. In this timeline, John is one of many Spartans. Sure, seeing him and his team arrive on the battlefield would certainly boost morale in the Marines, but he would not be so singularly picked out from the rest and made a symbol of the UNSC. Halsey uses this opportunity to pitch her Cortana project as a way to control John, basically taking over his brain. What's hilarious is Keyes tries to argue
Can't just replace his mind. We are talking about a person.
Funny given that he went along with the Spartan program, which was basically the closest thing they had to controlling people's minds at the time.
Hormonal pellets have suppressed his emotions.
Sounds like you guys were already fucking around with people's natural brain functions. Lord Hood throws the ball in Parandowski's court as she is in charge of Halsey's operations. She gives the go-ahead for a limited trial run on John when they are able to track him down and get him back, which is something that Parandowski seems to feel politically trapped to argue for, even though all she would have to do is say that from her understanding, Halsey has not found a way to conduct this without unethical means, or have Halsey explain how this will be done ethically.
Didn't that process depend on biological substrates derived from the illegal practice of flash cloning humans?
Then the political blame for not having a solution will be put back on Halsey. Just remember, she agreed to this and could have easily not if she was ethically unsure about it. We then go to Madrigal establishing Dark Knight Rises guy as pretty cartoonishly evil. Like I was saying, it seems like the show wants to have its cake and eat it too when it comes to how it portrays the complexities of war, showing that the people involved may want good, but do bad things to get it, like murdering a teenager and child kidnapping. But when you have a character like this,
Double kill. Triple kill. Kill-tacular. Overkill.
at least tone down his evilness. He's literally shooting people tied up with bags over their heads in the middle of the street. There's no way the UNSC would let someone like this operate one of their colonies. Usually leaders like this don't really benefit anyone or anything other than themselves. They usually stay in leadership because they don't have anyone else to check their power. But doesn't this guy still have to answer to the UNSC? Guys, this is world building you need to explain, otherwise this whole part of the story falls apart.
Oh, shoot.
And don't try to tell me he is somehow able to hide this from the UNSC. If Kwan can access footage like this from the asteroid city, then the UNSC definitely has the resources to find this out. Back at Soren's place, Kwan is upset at Dark Knight Rises guy. Soren's wife tries to comfort Kwan, sharing that she was even younger than Kwan when her whole family died.
I know how you feel. Do you? I lost my whole family when I was just a little younger than you are now. Lost my whole planet to the Covenant.
What an asshole!
Is she saying that the Covenant attacked her planet, killing her family and everyone else when she was younger than Kwan? Assuming the character is supposed to be around the same age as the actress, which is 43, and Kwan is a teenager, that means the Covenant have been attacking humanity for decades now, which is fine because that was the case in the games, first being set in 2552, and the first attack by the Covenant on humanity was 2525. However, it's now even harder to reconcile that no one on Madrigal was aware of definitive proof the Covenant exists. Yes, I am going to keep hammering that point. Soren tries convincing John that he needs to open his mind and undo what the UNSC did to his head, referencing the pellet mentioned in the previous scene that numbs Spartans' emotional responses and also their taste.
I don't taste anything.
That's freedom, man.
Clearly the writers of the show have that pellet because they clearly have no taste when it comes to good writing, am I right? Soren's kid stamps John's hand with a smiley face, and they do the thing where he doesn't understand what it is because he doesn't understand human emotions. For fuck's sake, we get it. Do me a favor, instead of watching this show, go watch Terminator 2. 1, because it's a great movie, but 2, because it deals with the concept of a robot learning human emotions with way more charm. John and Kwan show Soren the artifact, and he immediately goes to touch it, but nothing happens. Luckily for them, because he could have just nuked this whole place.
I know a guy.
Apparently someone on the asteroid city has been captured by the Covenant before and somehow got away. However, he's a bit out of his mind due to his experience. Despite the warning Soren gave and the visible mental instability this man seems to have, they immediately take out the artifact and show it to him. He exposits how the Covenant based their religion around artifacts left behind from another time. When he was captured by the Covenant, they tried to see if he could activate similar artifacts like John did last episode, and what Makee claims she can do.
I'm not a blessed one.
Okay, this is as good a place as any to explain the lore behind human beings being able to activate Forerunner technology, in case you haven't played the games, and explain why the show fucked it up. In the games, all humans have the ability to activate Forerunner technology by merely touching it. Other species do not have this ability. Back during the glorious Bungie days, the reason behind this was that the Forerunners themselves were ancient humans. The obvious proof for this is in the planned ending of Halo 2, where Arbiter and Guilty Spark find the remains of ancient humans buried in the Ark. Also, humans are called Reclaimers. The Reclaimers seem to be the only ones to be able to claim Forerunner technology. I wonder why. But then 343 came along and was like,
nah, let's just make Forerunners generic looking aliens that created this whole stupid mumbo jumbo about the mantle of responsibility or whatever fucking horse shit to pass on to humanity.
or whatever 343's original plan was. I really don't like the direction they took the lore and basically stripping away any mystique the Forerunners used to have. The important thing to take away from this is that the ability to access Forerunner technology is something every human possesses, because that just makes sense why it would be programmed to recognize the DNA of an entire species instead of just random humans that have the specific magical DNA, which is what the show is doing. Now, some of you are probably thinking,
what's the big deal? They just changed it from every human to some.
This is stupid both in universe and from a broader writing standpoint. They would have had to program specific human DNA to have that ability. That would have to have been passed down hundreds of thousands of years to people like John and Makee. Even though if they're keeping with the lore of the Halo rings, no one who was around during the Forerunners would be alive. Because, you know, that was the whole point of the rings, a biological weapon that nuked all sentient life in the galaxy. This now creates incredible convenience that John just so happened to be one of these few blessed ones that could activate this. Unless the show is doing the retarded thing Halo 4 tried to do.
When I indexed mankind for repopulation, I hid seeds from the didact. Seeds which would lead to an eventuality. You are the culmination of 1,000 lifetimes of planning.
The game Kiki here had the most involvement in. It seems like this show is just her trying to repackage her failed ideas from that game. The crazy guy then grabs the artifact and tries to hit John with it, but John catches it, activating it. Who would have seen this coming? It gives John more flashbacks to his childhood, and doesn't EMP everything else around it like last time. Oh good. It's just like the Force from the new Star Wars movies. Just does whatever the plot wants it to.
Lazy. Clumsy.
Then the crazy guy starts saying vague things about what this makes John.
You don't understand what you are, do you?
John gets impatient, a typical trait when your emotions are being suppressed, and grabs the crazy guy.
What am I?
Could you imagine the real Master Chief going full Christian Bale Batman?
Where are they? What am I?
Dim-witted.
The crazy guy then cryptically starts explaining what the ring is in such a comical way. It's literally a joke right out of Red vs. Blue.
The door
to what?
The end of life as we know it.
Say key all the time, and when you stick it in people, it unlocks their death.
Confirming to John that it's a weapon, he asks what he should do. The crazy guy starts saying that he should destroy the ring, then self-delete himself in Halo. John then hurries out of there.
I have to go back.
The UNSC? They turned my planet over to a warlord. They ordered you to kill me.
Yeah, and...
Hey, John, look, we can figure this shit out here.
Unless you can pull a massive army that is human-friendly out of your ass, the UNSC is still the best hope of getting to the ring and destroying it before the Covenant find it. John then ditches Kwan with Soren, who promises to protect her. He takes one last look at Kwan, then out of there and flies back to the UNSC. And John and Kwan never meet again for the rest of the season.
How does Urine and Master Chief's relationship evolve? Because that seems to be the kind of backbone of the show.
Once John is taken into UNSC custody, Halsey questions him and his odd behavior recently. Normally John would shoot teenage girls stone dead on any other day, but today is different. John explains that he feels something has changed inside him.
I felt something. I've been going over and over in my head all the details of the images that I see when I touch the object.
I don't think that's a constructive place for us to go.
Very subtle, Halsey. She questions why killing a helpless teenage girl is different from killing his other targets.
Bitch, are you for real?
As Makee seductively undresses in front of no one and looks at herself as if she's never seen her own skin before.
Hey, our show can be the sci-fi Game of Thrones. Back when people liked Game of Thrones. Senseless nudity, action, complicated politics, and a bunch of different main characters and factions that have their own storylines. That's why people like that show. If we have that in our show, then they'll like us. right?
John admits he only came back because
There's no one else I could trust.
then some ominous music plays as Halsey wakes up her clone. End of episode. Man, we're only 2 episodes in, and oh boy, this is not a great foundation to build the rest of the season, let alone the entire show on.
Your show.
Built on quicksand, therefore it collapses.
Kwan is really unlikable, which is saying something considering the antagonist she's going up against is a literal dictator who executes people in the streets. John has gone AWOL and come back, apparently with his entire worldview changed without having really established what he was like before this, which makes the change meaningless to us. Can't wait to watch 7 more episodes.
God, forgive me.
We open this episode on a flashback to Makee as a child, on some kind of trash planet. Her and this other boy are reading a book. They are about to kiss when the no fun police come to arrest them for being in love. Punishment? Beaten to death. Jesus Christ, why is everyone a fucking dick in this universe? Right after this happens, the Covenant show up and attack. However, this isn't a coincidence. The Covenant apparently have some kind of staff that can detect Blessed Ones. Did the Forerunners build that? Why? Did the Covenant? How?
Don't think about it!
So the Covenant abduct her and use her for her abilities. And she was more than happy to help them because, unlike these people, the Covenant aren't tasing her. Their motives are just to eradicate her entire species. Except her, of course. Boy, doesn't that logic fit nicely. Halsey's clone is fully awake and given something to build while her and the real Halsey exposit about the Spartan program, the Cortana program, and John. As soon as the clone starts talking about Miranda, their daughter, Halsey ends the conversation.
What about Miranda, our daughter? I think we have everything we need.
Halsey, the master of redirecting conversations she doesn't want to have. The clone then asks her if she remembers back when she was younger and questioned whether or not she could morally go through with this. Halsey answers this question with the most original answer a mad scientist in a gritty sci-fi could give.
Progress.
Subtle. The Cortana procedure begins. Clone Halsey asks this creepy scientist whether or not the thing he will inject in her will hurt. He responds with,
"Oh, yes."
Then bends down to kiss her. Subtle. Fortunately for the clone, real Halsey enters, preventing weirdo scientist guy from making further advances. Now, I could be wrong because I'm not really in the know on what happens in the extended lore of the games, but Cortana's creation wasn't like this, right? And if it is, my criticisms here also apply to whatever book or comic explains this. This all seems really needlessly complicated and dumb. Halsey had to clone herself so she can download the brain on a chip to put in John's head. In the games, I thought Cortana was partly created using Forerunner technology that was buried on Reach. At least that's what the mission in Reach made it seem like. Halsey used the Forerunner tech to copy her brain to make a fully conscious AI. Why would you need an extra brain to destroy in order to copy it? How does digitally copying it even destroy the brain? Isn't it a scan or something? You can't literally convert a physical object into something digital, right? Once the clone Halsey's brain is scanned, it gets jammed into John's head. Cortana appears, played by Jen Taylor, who plays her in the games, and apparently they made her audition for the part she's been playing for over 20 years.
So I did my audition via Zoom with Kiki Wolfkill and Otto Bathurst and Stephen Kane. And they were apparently texting the whole time I was doing it, and I read 6 or 7 scenes for them. And yeah, but then at the end, they just paused and Otto said, "Okay, well, I'm sold, see you in Budapest." And I was like, is that, which, did I?
Because if the showrunners couldn't be bothered to look at the games to write their show, you better believe they wouldn't do it for the casting either. Now, this is one of those things I mentioned earlier, about the little changes made that they think doesn't affect anything, but it does. So they just established that the chip with Cortana on it was put into John's head, which means he should really be the only one who could see or hear her.
This is a different kind of exploration of this character, technically and emotionally,
The reason everyone in the games can see and hear her is because she was on this giant chip that only went into Master Chief's helmet and anything else with a slot the chip could fit into. Cortana is confused as to why she can't take full control over John's body. Halsey explains that for the moment she is restricted. She needs to study John further to understand the artifact. Cortana insists that she complete her purpose in fully integrating with John, but Halsey puts her foot down. I know this is an adaptation and all, but it's such a lame origin for Cortana's existence. In the games, take a shot every time I say that, fucking Jesus. She was important because she was humanity's greatest technological achievement.
Do you have it?
Yes.
Say the words, please.
I have it.
Because she came from Forerunner tech, she possesses incredible knowledge and abilities that could save humanity from their losing fight against the Covenant.
We can glean from this artifact a defense against the Covenant, a game changer.
Not to mind control Master Chief. We then check back with Kwan and Soren at the asteroid city, where Kwan keeps randomly finding news footage of Dark Knight Rises guy talking, making her angry. She goes to Soren and asks him to take her back to Madrigal because Dark Knight Rises guy has
taking over. I have to join the resistance.
You serious?
Yeah, you joining the resistance is going to make all the difference. Kwan keeps pestering Soren to take her back, but Soren, rightfully so, keeps shooting her down, stating how much of a bad idea it is. Until Kwan finally says,
"Don't turn your back on me, asshole."
I'm gonna crush your skull.
Hey, remember how there's a big bounty on your head? Maybe you shouldn't be out in an open setting, no? Back on Reach, Halsey monitors John interacting with the artifact again. Halsey has Cortana temporarily take over John's consciousness. As soon as she does this, the artifact stops glowing, implying that it can tell the difference of who's touching it on a conscious level, not just a physical one.
It's unclear why the artifact responds only to John as John, but it does.
Man, this whole Blessed One concept is getting more and more contrived by the episode. We then cut to a random UNSC ship that an abandoned Covenant ship just so happens to come out of slip space near. The ship makes contact and it's Makee pretending to be a prisoner of the Covenant, with a pretty lame cover story.
How many on board?
I'm alone here. The aliens abandoned in pods when the engines failed.
She invades the ship using the worm things that make up hunters. Damn, they do some real damage. Why don't they use them like this more often? So she gets the captain of the ship pinned and interrogates him, asking where the artifact is and where their home base is. The guy refuses to answer. She then kills him with an energy sword that comes out of her nail? What the fuck? Why does she have that? It looks so goofy. Couldn't they have given her one of those little wrist-activated ones the jackals have in episode 5? So she takes out the whole ship and tries to use it to access the information she wants and gets nothing, then leaves. Just remember all this death and carnage she caused for later in the show. John goes to meet the rest of Silver Team. Oh yeah, remember them? You know, the people closest to John other than Halsey.
We've been fighting together since we were kids, Chief.
That they've barely seen or established their dynamic. Cortana appears and makes things awkward for John, I guess?
Go away. AI off. What are you doing?
Introducing myself to the rest of the team.
Go disappear.
I flat out don't understand the scene or what its purpose is. John leaves and goes back to look up the planet he was born on, the one he keeps seeing in his flashes, on this terminal booth thing. Cortana helps narrow down the planets. John says when he touches the artifact, he doesn't just see the memories, he
feel them.
Whatever that means. So in order to fully feel his memories, John decides to remove his emotional suppression pellet thing in his lower spine. The thing brought up last episode. Cortana goes to warn Halsey, but Halsey instructs Cortana to go along with it.
I want you to help him.
Even with Cortana's guidance, I feel like sticking a combat knife in your spine might be a little risky. Why doesn't Halsey offer to help John? Is there any good reason why she wants John to not know she knows?
It's better that he sees you as an accomplice rather than a spy.
But wouldn't it be better for him to use your equipment to make a more precise extraction of the pellet than risk paralyzing himself? Oh, he got it out, no problem. Which now completes his transformation from Spartan John 117 to the Master Chief.
What we're asking people to do with the show is to sort of sit back and say, we're going to present a side of Chief that you just don't get to play in the games.
I mean, I guess she wasn't lying. For some reason, Kai was just there watching Master Cheeks the whole time, as Kai regularly spies on Cheeks when he's completely naked. Whatever the reason, she seems intrigued at what he did. Master Cheeks puts his pellet in what I can assume is his cubbyhole, out in the open, for anyone to find. Despite removal of said pellet being
a direct violation of Section 3 regulations on Spartan behavior.
And even if he didn't know that for some reason, you'd think Cortana would warn him or suggest hiding it somewhere else. Cheeks then decides to walk around Reach for a bit, taking in the world differently without the pellet. He now can experience life in a whole new way.
Is this why you've removed your pellet? So you could hear things differently?
Maybe I just wanted to hear it like everyone else.
Ugh. This seems like a good place in the show to address this. There's this perception of Master Chief from the original games I want to squash. Ready? Master Chief is not a mindless weapon with no personality. Now, if this perception was only among some fans, I wouldn't be taking time out of this review to address it. But it seems to have not only seeped into a lot of fan discourse, but how 343, and therefore anyone who went to their boot camp about Halo, view and treat the character. The show has definitely went all in on the whole mindless machine of war that has literally been brainwashed to do what they say, which is so uninteresting as a concept. They tried introducing something similar to this in Halo 4, which again is the game Kiki here had the most involvement in. That Chief was just a mindless machine that blindly followed orders no matter what. And in this game, he finally stands up and becomes more human.
Before this is all over, promise me you'll figure out which one of us is the machine.
You say that like soldiers and humanity are two different things. I mean, soldiers aren't machines.
She said that to me once, about being a machine.
As a standalone idea, this is an interesting concept to explore, but in terms of being a sequel to the original games, not so much. I want to set the record straight that in the original trilogy of Halo games, Chief was not a machine with no humanity.
We're gonna make it, aren't we, sir? I don't want to die out here.
Oh, I see. The coordinate data needs to be... Right. Sorry.
You know how expensive this gear is, son?
Tell that to the Covenant.
Master Chief, defend this station.
Yes, sir. I need a weapon.
Right this way.
Sir. Permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
Permission granted.
I know what you're thinking, and it's crazy.
So, stay here.
Unfortunately for us both, I like crazy.
Relax. I'd rather not piss this thing off.
Can stop it.
Ooh.
Isolate that signal. Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
Radio for Vito. Heavy lift gear. We're not leaving him here.
Yeah, you're not.
Cocky bastard just loves to run his mouth.
Does he usually mention me?
Quickly, before your construct suffers any further trauma.
Leave her alone.
You might be too late.
You know me. When I make a promise.
You keep it. I do know how to pick 'em.
Lucky me.
Got an escape plan?
Thought I'd try shooting my way out. Mix things up a little.
Now, like I stated at the start of the video, I know this show is an adaptation. I just wanted to make it very clear that this isn't how Chief was portrayed in the games. Well, in Bungie's games at least. So I don't want to hear people saying,
Master Chief was always like this in the games, but now the show is finally deconstructing it.
which I think is a sentiment that the show itself kind of gives off. That only now that they have this prestigious TV show, it finally gives the games more legitimacy. Especially with this scene of Cheeks walking around Reach, or the weird scene of Makee artistically taking off her clothes. It comes across as faux artsy, and the way the show creators talk about the show doesn't help either, as if they've made something more artistic than the games, when in reality that couldn't be further from the truth.
We're asking people to do with the show is to sort of sit back and say, we're going to present a side of Chief that you just don't get to play in the games.
Try to start the show grounding it in human beings, letting you know this is going to be a story about humans and humanity.
Where that we can reach in and flesh those characters out and really bring a world that is so rich and full alive.
They give a little more nuance to Cortana and why she was created. The universe can feel so inaccessible. And so being able to sort of allow another entry point, I'm proud of.
It's so fascinating to go from essentially a machine that feels no emotion or any kind of hormonal interference to suddenly becoming human.
So much better here with intellectuals, isn't it, boys?
Master Cheeks breaks into the room with the artifact to touch it again. I guess now that the pellet is gone and he can feel better, the flashbacks will become clearer, which apparently was a good guess to make because we see even more of Cheeks' childhood. So, get this. As a child, he drew both this artifact and another one that this artifact can fit into. So, not only is he a blessed one, which seems to be a rare thing for humans to possess in the first place, but now the show is telling us that he randomly stumbled upon another artifact that fits together with the one he just found. And all this kicked off because he was tasked on a rescue mission that just so happened to be a location the Covenant fully dug the artifact out of but left.
Big coincidence. Not a big coincidence. A coincidence! No, that's a big coincidence.
For whatever reason, Cheeks' dad is upset with him drawing this and buries them in the backyard. You'd think he'd rip them up or something else that's not only easier but also gets rid of them completely. I guess if he had done that, the show's plot wouldn't be able to continue. Cheeks and Cortana are able to locate the planet while learning that Cheeks' parents are probably dead. Halsey enters and is told about the discovery. Cheeks insists he needs to go and see this place for himself. Halsey allows this and agrees to come with him. She seems to be playing a dangerous game, wanting Cheeks to uncover more memories while also trying to keep him from learning the whole truth. Guess we'll see if it pays off for her. Back at the asteroid thing, Kwan tries to steal Soren's ship.
I'm going to free Madrigal and you can't stop me.
I could kill you for trying to steal my favorite ship.
Okay, I'll stop. Kwan convinces Soren to take her to Madrigal, claiming her family is rich and will pay Soren when she gets there. Soren sees this as a win for him no matter what.
I'm gonna get paid either way. If not from you, then from the bounty on your head.
The rest of the episode is creepy scientist guy asking Halsey if she thinks they'll find the second artifact on the planet Cheeks remembers. Halsey gives a generic, weighty, yet utterly meaningless, sounding monologue while we intercut between the different characters in the show. Creepy scientist guy asks what happens if Cheeks remembers exactly what happened to him, because the truth could apparently
bring us all down.
Halsey responds by saying,
That is what Cortana is for.
Fucking hell. Can you imagine if you hadn't played the games and this is what you thought the relationship between Master Chief and Cortana was built on?
The character's almost entirely the same. A little bit different.
Yeah, you don't say. The relationship is nothing like it is in the games whatsoever. Cortana, much like, has way more personality in the games than she has here. Other than being voiced by Jen, the character doesn't seem to share anything. Being the likable protagonist that she is,